Hi guys, it's Jess from HFiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing all of the 5-star reads I've had so far this year. Alright guys, so I started doing this last year where at the end of every reading quarter, I would look back at the previous 3 months and share all of my 5-star reads. So most of the books on this list are fantasy romance, but there are a few dark romances sprinkled in, and I will be giving you a spoiler-free plot synopsis of every book, and then my overall thoughts and why I absolutely loved it. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon, all linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about my favorite books so far this year. So starting off, we have Anathema, or Anathema. I'm still not positive how the title is pronounced, but this is a dark gothic fantasy romance by Keri. I am kicking myself that I did not pick this book up sooner. It was amazing, easily a 5-star read. If you love unsettling, immersive worlds that are just so creepy, this felt like watching a horror movie most of the time I was reading it. I was obsessed. But I will say the beginning is a tad confusing, so if you're unfamiliar with the plot, we are following Maeve, and Maeve lives in a very patriarchal society, and she's actually shunned by most of the people in her community because she was left outside the Eating Woods as an orphan. Now, the Eating Woods are this, evil woods that if you are a sinner, the people of this community pretty much put you outside of it, and then you are either snatched up or you go into the woods and you are killed, immediately. So no one really wanders into these woods. But anyway, after an unfortunate event, Maeve, in order to save her sister, has to enter these woods. And when she does, she ends up in another realm that is filled with magic and danger, and also Xander, who is an assassin known as the Scorpion, and it's their romance. I could not put this book down. So like I said before, the beginning is quite confusing, or at least it was for me, but I feel like as you progress, things start to click and make sense. I feel like it's almost purposely done. So cannot wait. My biggest critique with this, and I said this on Instagram, I was positive this was a standalone. It is not. I thought it was a duology. Now people are saying it might be a series. Either way, I need that sequel ASAP. Before I share the rest of my 5-star reads, I'd like to take a moment to thank Yesoul for sponsoring today's video and sending me over a stationary bike that has honestly become part of my everyday bookish routine. As someone who's constantly trying to balance reading goals with real life, I've been loving how this bike lets me move my body while still getting in some quality audiobook time. The full HD screen is one of my favorite features. You can easily connect your phone and stream videos right to the display, which means I've been catching up on booktube videos and reading vlogs while getting in a ride and some much needed exercise. The magnetic resistance is whisper quiet, which means I can ride early in the morning or late at night without worrying about waking anyone or ruining the vibe if someone else is reading nearby. And the dual speakers, let's just say they bring the drama of a good fantasy romance to life in a really satisfying way. I love being able to fit in some movement, whether it's during a reading sprint or right before dinner, without feeling like I'm giving up my book and reading time. So if you're someone who's trying to stay active and stay on top of your TBR, I cannot recommend Yesoul enough, and you can use my code down in the description below to save on your first order. And next up is The Crown of Oaths and Curses by Bree. This is an enemies to lovers fantasy romance, very light on the romance. If you're unfamiliar with the plot, we are following Rooksbane Evening Star, and she is a witch, and when she was younger, the Fae ended up persecuting the witches, so she ended up fleeing to another continent where she's been serving a king that is not her own. Well, eventually she realizes that she has to fulfill this prophecy and return to her fated mate. So, Rook ends up going to the southern lands and approaches the savage prince, the Prince of the Fae, and agrees that she will be his wife because they are fated mates, despite the fact that they both loathe each other. And I am talking full-on hatred. So I almost rated this book 4.5, and that was only because of the MMC. I absolutely detested that Fae. Oh my gosh, and he was so frustrating, but really Rook made up for it. I just loved her as a character. She's one of my favorite heroines. She's a healer. There's a lot of like natural remedies in this, and I just loved that she was intelligent. Like she really wasn't rash. And overall, one of my absolute favorite heroines. But if you have not read this, I highly recommend picking it up. I know the second book has very mixed reviews, but this first book was so good. Just know going in that there is almost no romance. There's definitely a lead up to an enemies to lovers relationship, but in this first book, none whatsoever. And next up is probably my top read of the year, so it is Blood Over Bright Haven. Now, this is a standalone dark academia fantasy, no romance, and it is by the same author that wrote The Sword of Kaigen. This book is brilliant and is one of the best books I've ever read, and I don't think I've ever cried as hard reading a book as I did this, even more than Sword of Kaigen, and I didn't think that was possible. But this story is following Siona, and she has spent her life trying to become a high mage in a male-dominated profession. So she finally is able to accomplish her goal, and she is soon met with sabotage. So instead of being assigned a lab assistant, she is assigned a janitor. But Tummel is no ordinary janitor. He is actually a survivor from a people beyond the magical border, and he is determined to discover what caused his people to all be killed. And it really goes from there, but this story tackles some very upsetting themes and some themes that I feel like are very relevant to today. It's a very hard read, but also beautiful, and I feel like everyone really should read this book. I will be discussing this with my therapist. I know a lot of people say that after finishing this book, but oh my gosh, I absolutely loved this, and the ending, while open to interpretation, I cannot imagine a better book. I just absolutely love this. So please, if you have not read this, if you cannot tell, I'm obsessed, and once again, probably my favorite read of the year. And next up, we have The Scattered Bones. This is a dark fantasy romance standalone, and I think I have talked about this book in every video since finishing it, so I will keep this very brief. But this is following Sela, and after the death of her greatest love, Sela is met by a stranger who tells her that if Sela is able to find the body parts of her love that have been scattered across the realm and return them to the stranger, he will be able to bring her greatest love, Cade, back. Now, this is an incredibly dangerous mission because not only are these body parts spread across the realm, they are also guarded by these vengeful gods. So Sela will have to go through these trials in order to get these body parts, and it's really just watching Sela's determination and her fighting for her love. So this is a dual POV, or dual timeline, so part of the book we are following Sela and watching her slowly fall in love with Cade, and then the other timeline is watching Sela fight to bring her love back. I loved this. It was so beautifully written and immersive, and you never in a million years would think this book is this short while you're reading. It felt like I finished an entire 6-book series by the time I finished this book, and honestly, I would read an entire 6-book series of these characters in this world. I feel like the author just did such an amazing job fleshing out all of these characters in such a short amount of time, so I cannot wait to read more by this author. Alright, so this next 5-star read is a dark romance, and it is a 5-star sheerly based off of vibes, because I had a really fun time while I was reading this, and I could not put this book down. It is completely unhinged, but I do not think it's going to be a 5-star for everybody. There are definitely critiques to be had. But if you have not read The Fabric of Our Souls, it is very similar to the Stay With Me series. It's just this is a standalone, so a lot happens in a much shorter time frame. But in the story, we are following our main character who ends up waking up in a hospital room after trying to end things, and her brother tells her that he is going to send her to a rehabilitation center. Now, when she gets there, she realizes this rehab center is unlike any center I've ever heard of. So male and females are allowed to be roommates, and they're actually encouraged to get it on, and they have a lot of freedom. It's a very interesting rehab center. But anyway, our main character ends up being roommates with this guy named Liam, and he is the opposite, where she really wants to end her life. He wants to feel and wants to live, but he does participate in self-harm, so that's why he's there. So these two, he absolutely hates her because she wants to end things, And she doesn't understand why he hates her because they barely know each other, but they have this instant connection that starts off with them both antagonizing each other and then slowly becomes more. But then it turns into a full-on suspense mystery and just goes completely off the rails the second half of the book. There's also a love triangle that kind of comes in. This book had a little bit of everything, but I could not put it down. So definitely check it out. If you've read this, tell me what you think. I haven't even looked at the reviews of this book yet, but I really, really enjoyed it. And next up, we have Lady of Darkness by Melissa K. Roehirch. This is the first book in the Lady of Darkness series. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the plot, we are following Scarlet, and when Scarlet was very young, she was found by the Assassin Lord and raised with her two adopted sisters to be an amazing assassin. So now she is very feared by everyone in the realm, and she is longing to get revenge on the Fae Fire Prince that she believes has killed her family. Now, the Assassin Lord is holding this information above Scarlet's head in order to control her, and he ends up giving her a mark where he says, if you kill this person, I will give you the information you are searching for. But before Scarlet can carry that out, she finds out that there are children that are going missing, and she starts to investigate. Now, while this is all happening, there is a mysterious stranger who ends up showing up and takes an interest in Scarlet. And then the story really goes from there. This has fae, vampires, witches, all of these different creatures. I absolutely love this first book. I think it's a very good introduction into a fantasy romance story. Now, similar to another book I mentioned, I did rate this, I think 4.75, only because Scarlet really frustrated me as a character. She made some very poor decisions. However, I was reminded during the live show, this is actually part of a read-along I'm doing over on Patreon, that she is only 19, so she's actually a teenager, so some of the decisions do make a little bit more sense when you look at it that way. So I did raise this to a 5-star, but I cannot wait to continue with this series. And never in a million years did I think a Hunger Games book would be one of my top reads of the year. This book wrecked me. I was not prepared going into this. I honestly picked this up at night and I was planning on reading like 2 chapters before bed. I could not stop reading this book and cried the entire time. Since finishing this book, I have watched all 4 of the movies at least twice. Songbirds, or The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I've now watched 4 times since finishing this. I can't stop coming up with theories and just thinking about this book and how it factors in to the original series and changes things, and oh my gosh, this book is brilliant. This is one of those books I will hear no criticism on. I find that's very, very rare. But for this book in particular, I've heard some people saying, actually I'm not going to say that because that's a spoiler. But anyway, I am going to spoil the first 3 books in the Hunger Games. So if you're unfamiliar with the Hunger Games in general, skip to the next book. I will not spoil any of the plot of this though. So if you're unfamiliar with the plot of the Sunrise on the Reaping, we are following Haymitch, and he ends up being selected for the 50th Hunger Games, or the Second Quarter Quell, which is essentially a fight to the death that is forced upon the districts by the capital, which is super, super evil. So anyway, we are following Haymitch as he tries to survive during these Hunger Games, and we get to see everyone that he meets and he loses along the way. This also deals with some very, very important themes like media manipulation and changing the narrative to best suit your needs. And there are a lot of important things that are brought up in this book, but just this book in general feels perfect it feels like the perfect companion to the original series. I feel like the things brought up in this book really help to enhance the original series in a lot of ways. And once again, I have so many theories. So I really hope I'm unsure if I want Suzanne Collins to write a book in Finnick's perspective, only because I feel like if this book hurt, that book will just completely shatter me. And I don't know if I'm ready to read it, but I would love more in this world. I have a new appreciation for this series. So this was definitely a top book of the year. And next up, we have Fate and Furies, which is the 3rd book in the Legend of Thezmarr series. Now, I can't get into the plot of Fate and Furies because it'll give away all the spoilers for the previous 2 books. But if you have not read The Legend of Thezmarr, we are following Althea, and she dreams of one day becoming a warrior of legend. Unfortunately, women are no longer allowed to wield weapons in her community, so she has been training in secret until she is discovered by Wilder, who is a warrior, and he reluctantly agrees to train her in the hopes that one day she will reach her dreams. And it kind of has like The Witcher vibes. It's this super epic fantasy romance, and I really enjoyed it. But Fate and Furies in particular, I feel like Althea really comes into her own. We really get to see her embraced her inner power, and I just loved her growth in that book. And there's just some awesome battles also that actually takes place in pretty much every book in that series. But I'm pretty sure I rated all of the books 4 stars and above, but Fate and Furies, by far my favorite. And last up is a dark taboo romance, so it is Gratify. And it pretty much has every taboo trope you can possibly think of. So it is ex-boyfriend's dad, godfather, boss, and then age gap. So literally covers everything, but we're following this girl that ends up finding out her boyfriend is cheating on her, and then soon after, her parents are in a terrible accident where they both lose their lives. So she moves in with her godfather, who happens to be her ex-boyfriend's father, and he offers her a job at, I forget exactly what he does, but she becomes his employee. And then they realize they're attracted to each other, and it causes a whole bunch of problems. But I loved all of the drama. I really enjoy taboo romance and dark romance, so I knew I was gonna love this. I'd been seeing it all over Bookstagram, and I finally downloaded the audio. This is another book I read in one sitting, and I can't find my physical copy, but it's a pretty chunky book for a dark or taboo romance. So 5-star read, and I definitely want to read more from Katelyn Taylor. Alright guys, those were all my 5-star reads of the first quarter. I'd like to say a special thank you to today's sponsor, Yesoul Fitness. Remember, you can use my link down in the description below to save $100 on your order. I'd also like to say a special thank you to my Paladin protectors, Lada, Leslie, Kat, Kylie, Jess, Amanda, and the Sarah Andrea family. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!